What's going on, hikers? In today's video, I'm going to be sharing all of my secrets on how to enjoy and love tent camping and be comfortable whenever you take that tent out into the backcountry. So the goal of today's video is that, and the goal of this channel is to help you increase your quality of life while you're out on trail. And we're going to start with this. Whenever you're finding your spot to tent camp, that's absolutely number one. You want to do a few things. Make sure your spot is open enough to put your tent there, and you want to make sure it's flat and level. All those being key. And then the last thing would be, if you look above you, you want to make sure that there are no widow makers, which would be falling branches or maybe a tree that could fall over and land on top of you in the middle of the night. Maybe you get some wind or a storm or something. That is bad news. So always check around. Make sure you got a good area to set up your tent. The next thing you want to do after you have your area picked out is clear it of any debris, any sticks, any roots, anything that you're going to feel under you whenever you're laying there in your tent. That is the opposite of enjoying tent camping. So we got our area prepped, ready to go. Let's actually set the tent up. I got my tent, which we'll talk about in a second. I have my ground sheet, and this is just a piece of Tyvek. My tent didn't come with a ground sheet, but I put it down in my little area that I have prepped. And what I like to do before setting the tent up on it is just feel around. Feel what would be under the surface of my tent. And the reason why is I don't want anything sharp or pokey to punch through the bottom of my tent, because obviously it's going to damage the tent, but it's also going to damage my sleeping pad possibly and deflate it, which would not be good. Now the tent that I'm using, it is the Sea to Summit Telos TR2. I'll link it and every piece of gear that I'm going to show you in this video. They're all pieces that I love. I would advise you, honestly, if it's your first tent, to probably go with a freestanding tent. Now this tent, as you're going to see, is it has poles, and that helps it stand up without using tension or stakes to hold it up. And for ease of use, especially if you're a beginner, I think that would be a good suggestion. Also, this is a double wall tent. And what that means is it's got an inner and an outer, and that's going to help keep condensation away from me while I'm laying in it. So we'll talk more about that here in a few minutes. Let's get this thing set up. This is the inner part of the tent that I mentioned. This is the outer part. So this would be the waterproof section of the tent. And when I put this on, if this was a single wall tent, it literally means it's only one wall. Since this is going to have two walls, it's double wall. And what happens is, I'll show you in a second, but your feet can rub up against single wall and get you wet, or maybe your head or something while you're sleeping. So I'll go ahead and throw this on too. If it's going to be a nice night, sometimes I will sleep without this outer part on if I don't think I'm going to get rained on. But one of my other tips is you should practice setting this stuff up at home, because you don't want to be out there in the middle of the night and then you went without your outside, your outer, and then you had to put this shell on in the middle of the night and you don't know how to do it. Like right now I'm messing it up, so I need to practice more too. But that would be the worst thing, getting everything soaked because you haven't practiced enough at home before you take it out. This is the most underrated part of tent camping, what I'm about to tell you, because unless you're stuck in here in your tent in a storm or something, basically the only time in there is sleeping. And your sleep setup is the most important part of it. Now you do need the right size tent, so if you lay in here, you don't want your head or feet touching. You want enough width that you can fit yourself and possibly some gear in there. But my sleep setup, I'm going to share some of it with you. A good pillow. This is the Nemo Fillo pillow. I'll link it and a couple of other pillows that you can check out if you want to. This is my favorite pad right now. It is the Nemo Tensor. I have the Alpine version, so it's extra insulated for wintertime, but another great option, you'll see these a lot, the big yellow ones. This is the Neo Air X-Lite pad. It works great too. I find that the wide version of these is a little bit more comfortable so my legs or arms don't hang off. And then for a sleeping bag or quilt, I'll show you my quilt first. This quilt is made by Western Mountaineering. If I remember correctly, it's a 26 degree, and it doesn't have a back to it. You can see it's kind of wide open. That helps me carry a little bit less weight, but if I'm going with sleeping bag and it's going to be colder, this is a 15 degree Nemo Disco, and it even has a hood on it, so I'm going to stay extra warm. Zips up, works absolutely perfect. I'll put those in the description. Feel free to research other good pads and good pillows and good sleeping bags or quilts. Where I bought mine was actually today's video sponsor, and it is backcountry.com. They're a longtime supporter of the channel. Huge shout out to them for continuing to support us here. I would urge you to check out their website, because not only did I get all my gear there, but you can find whatever gear that you're looking for on their site too. Use my code JeremiahBC15 for 15% off of your first order. Save yourself a little bit of money. I know you're working on getting everything set up and tuned in. They have experts that can help guide you. You can call them, you can chat with them and select on there that you're doing hiking or camping, and they can walk you through the gear products that may fit your needs best. So again, a huge shout out to backcountry.com, and make sure you go check them out. I mentioned earlier about getting the right size tent for you. So I'm sitting up, I have these pads double stacked in here, and I still have plenty of headroom. My feet aren't touching. If I lay down, you can see I got my comfy pillow. I could lay here and take a nap, but plenty of head space. I also want to mention that you want to make sure that your tent is seam sealed. And basically what that means is if it rains, it's not going to leak, because these tents are sewn together. And if they don't seam tape them or seam seal them at the factory, you have to do it yourself. So if you look here, this right here is seam tape. Now some companies will paint it with seam sealer, but this company, Sea to Summit, has taped theirs. And basically what that's going to do is keep that seam from leaking whenever you get moisture or rain coming in on you. So I'm telling you, shout out to John Kelly. He was out recently and his tent wasn't seam sealed, and he had to pack up and leave in the middle of the night. So it could be a really costly mistake out there. I want to give you 2 quick tips to close out today's video. The first being, make sure that everything inside your tent and around it has a designated spot. For example, this piece of gear, Petzl Bendy, that is my go-to headlamp, and I sleep with it either around my neck, or if I'm using this tent in particular, the bag that the poles go in when you pack it up actually snap into the top, and you can stick your headlamp in there and turn it on, and it creates this light bar. That's what they call it, the light bar feature, and that will light up your entire tent. And if you're stuck in here, you got plenty of light, you can see everything that you're doing. The second being, you're going to be on the ground, okay? We call them ground dwellers whenever you're tent camping. And the thing is sometimes you don't want to be on the ground, and some people bring a pad, but what I like to bring is a backpacking chair. So for £1, maybe a little bit more depending on which one you buy, but I'll share mine with you. Right now it's the Helinox Chair Zero, and sitting in that is way better than sitting on the ground the entire time while I'm tent camping. Now if I'm hammock camping, sometimes I don't bring a chair because my hammock is like a seat, but definitely with the tent. Now if you've enjoyed today's video, make sure you give me one of these. Comment below and tell me what else could I have shared with people to help them enjoy tent camping. And I guess subscribe to the channel and kick that notification bell for the latest notification. We'll see you in the next one.